On April 16, 1996, 17-year-old Kellyanne Bates was drowned in a bathtub and murdered after enduring 4 weeks of continuous torture at the hands of her 48-year-old partner, James Patterson Smith, who had begun grooming the Manchester schoolgirl when she was only 14 years old. Bates met Smith while babysitting for one of his friends. Posing as a gentleman, he offered to walk her home that night to keep her safe. The grooming process was so covert that Bates's parents did not meet Smith until 2 years later, when they were finally introduced to the much older man. They had spoken to him on the phone but were completely unaware of his age. Immediately after the first meeting, they became concerned. How could they not? Bates was just a teenager, and Smith was a divorced man in his late 40s. Her mother, Margaret, recalled, "When I first met him, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up." Growing up, Bates was a strong girl who loved sports. She dreamed of becoming a teacher and studied at college while working at a graphics firm. She had plans for her future and ambitions. However, after meeting Smith, she changed completely. She stopped bathing and would sit curled up on the sofa in complete silence for hours. Margaret said, "She came home and part of her face was bruised. She said some girls had attacked her. I couldn't bear the worry, but I knew that if I took her away from him, I might lose her." Then one day, Bates came home and told her parents that she had gotten a new job and wouldn't be able to see them as often. On November 30, 1995, she left the family home for good to move into Smith's 2-bedroom house on Furnivall Road, Gorton. Bates continued to speak to her parents on the phone, but they never saw her alive again. As soon as she moved in with him, Bates was systematically isolated from her family and friends. When phone calls home became sporadic and birthday and Christmas cards arrived signed by Smith instead of Bates, her family grew increasingly concerned for her welfare and contacted their doctor and the police. However, because she was now legally an adult, neither of them took action. Her parents were afraid to go to the house to check on her, fearing that their intervention might backfire and drive their daughter even further away, a decision they regret every single day. On April 16, 1996, Smith went to a local police station and stated that Bates was dead. When the police arrived at the scene, they found her naked and lifeless body on the bathroom floor. Smith claimed that they were in the bathtub when she swallowed water and died accidentally. However, it was abundantly clear that this was no accident. Investigations revealed that Bates's blood was in every room of the house, and her post-mortem examination concluded that she had over 150 distinct injuries on her body. This was not the result of a sudden act of violence. Bates had been systematically tortured over a long period. In the 4 weeks leading up to her horrific death, Bates was burned with cigarettes and branded on the thigh with a hot iron. Boiling water had been poured over her feet. She had sustained wounds from knives, forks, and scissors. Marks on her neck indicated that she had been strangled. At some point, her hands and knees had been crushed, rendering her unable to walk and escape. Parts of her body were severely disfigured, and both eyes suffered severe damage. It was determined that she had been blinded up to 3 weeks before her death.